Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Welcome to Thanksgiving week. If you allow me, I'll spend the whole time talking about college football and definitely the Texas versus Texas A&M game. The rivalry has been renewed. Let's debate. Let's get on each other's nerves. And let's fight over more than just the wishbone from the turkey. But, are there more important things to talk about? Probably. And so maybe I'll save that for my personal channel, I guess. But I'd love to post some comments. Are you rooting for the Longhorns, the Aggies? Is it, are you going to the game? I've got some people I know that are going to. What an incredible atmosphere. Anyway, maybe there'll be a last minute or two to talk about that because, faith, family, football, it fits together. But we got a great guest today on the Texas Values Report because we're not done talking about the election. I know it's only been 3 weeks, and a lot of people probably want to turn the page if, you weren't on the winning side. But so many great things to unpack, to talk about, to celebrate. Not that there aren't things to do since then. But, and I like to bring people that have a Texas connection back onto the show. And someone who has that connection is Morgonn McMichael. She's been a guest before on our show. She was one of our featured speakers on the Gen Z panel at the Faith, Family, and Freedom Forum, our Texas Values Policy event, annual event in September. Did a fantastic job. Loved meeting her family. She is a 24-year-old Gen Z speaker, writer, actress, and social media content creator. She empowers and inspires America's next generation of conservative leaders, and she's one of the best professional yappers out there. Morgan, welcome back to the Texas Values Report.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I have to say, when it comes to Thanksgiving, although football may be a hot discussion, I think that politics should be at the forefront of the dinner table. I know it's a hot take, but I am very pro-political conversation.
No, I agree with you. Politics, religion, and, someone's view on who's going to win whatever rivalry game there is. Because there are a few others on Saturday, but, in other parts of the country. And Michael Knowles has a little video he posted about being that conservative uncle. One of my kids sent this to me. And, I was sort of that guy. But, I don't even, walk in the door and people are on me now, right? They're ready to just mix it up because I got a couple of, different opinions sometimes in my family. And, I think I might just walk in and point to a scoreboard. What else do I need to say? I don't know. But we want you to talk on this show. I get to talk all the time. But for a second, because there's a lot that's happened since the election. Haven't got a chance to talk to you since then. What's it been like? Sort of just walk us through what that was like for you election night and the next day or so afterwards. Because I know you put a lot of work into the Trump, President Trump-elect's campaign. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it has been a lot of work getting to the finish line. Election day was electric. I don't think any of us actually thought that we would have election results that I guess technically the next day around 3 a.m. I was actually at the New York Young Republicans event that they were having in the city, and it was so incredible being surrounded by so many young conservatives. And I think that is very telling with where the needle is moving, not just with the 2024 election, which we saw Gen Z did come out and vote in troves, and they voted the correct way. We still have a lot of work to do with our generation, and we still have a lot of work to do with women as well. But when you're seeing the numbers polling in a conservative direction, I think this is looking really good for 2026 and 2028. We just have to keep the momentum going. And I think that's where we have the foot in the door now for 2024. We have the White House, we have the Senate, and we have the House. We have a ton of new congressional staffers that are going to be assisting these congressmen and women. And it is a very exciting time for young Gen Z conservatives to continue to be politically active and involved. I know you guys posted what I was saying about how women under the age of 30 40% voted for Donald Trump. And these are numbers that we have never seen before. And I have to say that the work that Alex Clark is doing also with Turning Point USA, alongside the work that I've been doing with Turning Point USA, our college tours, is the MAGA movement. The RFK decision for him to support Donald Trump absolutely changed the game when it came to young female voters, because they care about their fertility, they care about the food that they eat, they care about their families, they care about wanting to have families in the future. future, and they care about health. And so I think that when you're looking at those numbers of how come women are voting more for Trump than ever before, voting conservative or turning conservative more than we've ever seen in history, I genuinely think it's because of a lot of the times the MAGA movement rejecting feminism, rejecting their birth control, and rejecting the societal norms. Men have always been kind of drifting to the conservative way because they're rejecting those social norms that are pushed to them in the public school systems that we need to completely dismantle and re-put together, because we just see the indoctrination that is happening there. But over the last couple of days, especially now that all the cabinet picks are confirmed and finished, I see some very exciting things that are going to be happening in the next couple of years here in DC.
Now, there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to acknowledge. To your point about, maybe a generational shift, drift, however you want to phrase it, but there's something happening there, right? And look, I mean, Turning Point USA has certainly had a big hand in that. Charlie Kirk and his leadership. As a matter of fact, you have, I don't know if it's a new role, but a new location in the role that you've had with Turning Point USA. And I want you to talk about that in just a second. But to follow up on some of your comments on the election results, look, Trump won the Catholic vote. And as a Catholic myself, that's not something you see very often for a Republican. But we saw the signs were there that it was probably going to go in that direction, or there was a potential for the work he was doing in some parts of the country up in Northeast. But he won the Hispanic vote. Well, I'm sorry, in Texas he won the Hispanic vote. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember if he did nationwide. But those are two electorates that also care about blocks of voters that care about the values issues or tend to, right? And so what does that tell you about, how to win elections and what people care about? But a lot of that had to do with the economy, and certainly in Texas, border security issues, but not just Texas. There were many other states where the border security was an issue, because we've seen how illegal aliens making their way all the way to the northern border, if you will, of America, and it's been a big problem. But not being afraid to dig in on that issue. And look, a lot of young people are well aware of what's going on in those type of issues as well. But I think the economy is a big part of it as well. But Trump gives young people a voice. I mean, you were there at the RNC in Milwaukee in July, and I mean, Riley Gaines was there, and so many other, Paula Scanlon, young ladies that are continue to rise and have a voice and have a place. And I think that part of the reason that they're there, and some of these, people that Trump has appointed are young ladies. I don't know what their age is. I don't want to get too, specific about that. But I think we can agree that it is a younger generation of young women leaders that he's putting in positions of influence. And that, voters see that, they catch on, and they think, hey, he's listening to me, if you will.
Absolutely.
Not me. I'm not a young woman. I didn't mean it that way. Okay.
I mean, he's encapsulated
you know what I've been.
Voters. He definitely has. He has been a cultural phenomenon for months now leading up to the election. And he has motivated the young voters just simply by being relatable, being entertaining, and being funny. And if you compare the Donald Trump versus the Kamala Harris campaign, Kamala Harris run on a single values issue, which was normalizing abortion and uplifting the feminist movement, whereas Donald Trump was actually attacking the issues, like you said, immigration and inflation, which are actually impacting middle class, lower class, all Americans across the board. And the swing states were really telling. When you look at the ground game, I feel like not enough recognition happens when you look at the ground game that was happening in all of these swing states. Turning Point Action had ballot chasers working day in and day out in numerous swing states, so specifically Wisconsin and Arizona. And we saw that Wisconsin was the second state to be called for a Donald Trump win after Pennsylvania, which we know Scott Pressler and Chris Maloney were working tirelessly on also chasing ballots in Pennsylvania. So I think when you look at all of the work that has collectively happened between ballot chasing in all of the swing states, social media, the ground game with Charlie Kirk and our college tour that we just got back from right before the election, we are seeing how the Gen Z vote turning out actually made a difference in this election.
Well, and look, at the RNC, just to step back to that for a minute, I'm forgetting what the young lady's name was. Donald Trump Jr.'s daughter who spoke. You may remember her name. What's that?
Kai Trump.
Yes, she did a fantastic job. And I remember coming back. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that Kai's speech was incredible. And I think it brought a lot of relatability for a lot of young women who are in college, that it humanized him a little bit more. That is his grandfather, that is her grandfather.
Right.
And so Kai being able to so stoically go on that stage and support her grandfather's campaign and continue to now be involved has just shown other young women that this is more normal in society.
And look, I have a 14-year-old daughter. She's going to be 15 in about 3 weeks. But when I got back home, it gave me something to talk about with her. Hey, did you see that? And she was like, Dad, is that what you expect me to do, to give speeches now? Now, she did sing at one of our events one time, or sort of started the singing of God Bless America. So she's had her little moments, not quite the stage that Kai was on. But yes, giving, not just saying it, but doing it with their actions, putting people in positions to connect and to show that, they're relevant to what's happening in America. All right, let's talk about a big event that y'all have coming up. And if anybody can pull off an event 3 days before Christmas and get people to go out there, quite impressive. But listen, the lineup for America Fest is, the draw in itself. Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Riley Gaines, I believe you're one of the speakers. Why should people come to this event?
This is the biggest freedom event of the year. America Fest has become an annual event, over 10,000 attendees. This year, I think we're maybe going to inch closer to 15,000, especially after the huge win of the election. This is where we're all going to get to celebrate and hear from the biggest name conservative speakers in the country. Steve Bannon, Donald Trump Jr., Ben Carson, Tim Pool's going to be there, Senator Josh Hawley, Matt Walsh, Brett Cooper. I mean, the list continues to go on, and I'm super excited for the focus this year as we get to celebrate the win, hear from the big names, and also talk about the MAGA movement, which I know Charlie has been speaking a lot about. And there's going to be more speakers to come soon. So you guys should definitely register to go. It's just amfest.com. And if you use promo code Morgonn, MORGONN, you get an additional 50% off your tickets. And there's currently a Black Friday sale where GA is more than half off, and the code will get you an additional 25% off. So you should definitely look into going.
That's Morgonn with 2 N's. Okay, 2 N's.
Yes.
Just want to make sure everybody hears that and sees that. Like her Twitter handle, Morgonn, MORGONNM. You can find her there on X. Excuse me, did I say Twitter? Let's talk about a women's issue. Nancy Mace, the representative congressional member from South Carolina, has been messaging on the Save Women's Sports, but also now making it clear that when this new Congress comes in, and even before that, if you will, that we shouldn't have men in the women's bathrooms. This is basic, people. But for someone like her to talk about it and not just, in a passing comment, she said this issue is something that, she would only allow to happen, men going into the women's restrooms, over her dead body, something she would die for. I mean, that is a line in the sand. Is it related to this congressional member of, I forget what state he's coming out of? Is it New Hampshire, Massachusetts? I don't know, Rhode Island, maybe you can remember. But, quote unquote, the first transgender, this male who thinks that he's a woman and won a congressional seat, Sarah McBride, I think, or maybe his original name was Tim. But the issue's been boiling up before this. But wow, what a moment, that we're experiencing with someone of her level and stature and reach saying this is one of the biggest issues and, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to give my life for it. It's impressive.
This is the first time that Congress has really had to address this issue on a personal level. I know that many of us have been speaking out about saving women's sports, talking about how men should not be allowed to play in women's sports, how men cannot continue to invade and violate women's safe spaces. And now, for the first time ever, it is hitting Congress in the Capitol, where there is now a man who identifies as a woman who has been elected. I will say that it is a little scary knowing that I have friends who work on Capitol Hill who are going to be walking by and using the restroom as this person, even though it has come out that they will not be using the women's bathroom, which I think is great. I don't know how the male constituents will feel about the transgender person also being in the men's bathroom. I just think, it's creating a lot of issues within the Capitol Hill. And at the end of the day, it is so simple, point blank, period. Men should not be in women's safe spaces. We should not be prioritizing men over women ever.
Well, and look, this when that happens, when people sort of look the other way or act like it's not a big deal to allow men to be using the women's restrooms, shower rooms, locker rooms, there are a lot of facilities that it's more than just your standard bathroom, if you will. You have other people that notice, oh, well, they're not enforcing a rule against that person, so I'm going to take advantage of it and go in there too. You'll see men that'll do that will prey on girls of all ages. Not to mention the crazy stuff that happens in public school bathrooms and locker rooms. We're already hearing stories all the time of young people that are being attacked, they're being sexually assaulted. Because part of this, in my opinion, Morgan, and we're talking with Morgonn McMichael, she is a Turning Point USA contributor and just all things Gen Z, as we said earlier, a professional yapper. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that, what that means, but I think it's self-explanatory. But you create this, when you allow men to go in the women's restroom and no one says anything and we don't have some updated rules that make it clear, it creates this environment where everyone's like, oh, I guess we shouldn't, I don't know what to do, or there's confusion, or maybe I shouldn't say anything. It creates these pause and to where people second guess their instincts, and then this thing, it just continues to happen, and eventually, sadly, a lot of times someone gets hurt. But someone like Nancy Mace saying, we're done. This is, you've had an opportunity to address the issue. No one has. We've had enough. You've pushed too far, and this is part of the election results. The left going way too far on the transgender stuff and others, tax dollars for sex change surgeries for people in the military and in prison. Are you kidding? And it's swinging back and saying, we've had enough. We're going to put this, and we've dealt with this issue at our Texas Capitol. Our legislative session's coming up, starts in January. There's already been a bill that's been filed on this issue, not just in the Capitol, but any public restroom in the state of Texas. But I think the public is now ready to say, yeah, we should have something clear on this. But for young ladies, and look, I haven't had that experience, but I've talked with you, Paula Scanlon, Riley Gaines, Macy Petty. I mean, it's a different experience, I think it's fair to say, for men and women, because of all these things that happen sometimes. It's already a little nerve-wracking to be undressing in front of another female, but to worry, to your point, I'm going to go into my U.S. Capitol and I have to worry about this. I'm glad this is getting taken off the table, but I'm also glad it's been raised to a level where we can get serious about it.
Right. And this should not be a controversial issue at all. It really comes down to, you give an inch, they take a mile. People are going to take advantage of it if we even allow the hysteria to continue. So the fact of the matter is that we need to put our foot down and say, no, in no circumstances are biological men going to be allowed to enter female safe spaces anywhere across the country, just like the work that all three of those young ladies who I am dear friends with speaking out about as well, with the sports issue, bathroom issue, locker room issue, whatever it is. Why did we get to this place in society where people are even questioning if it's okay? Because when you ask on the other side if women can go into men's locker room, biological women in men's locker room, of course the answer is no. Yet there's a double standard that has been set to where all of a sudden men are wanting to continue to violate and invade women's safe spaces, and it's just not okay.
Well, okay, so speaking of Riley Gaines, on December 8th in the evening, Riley Gaines is going to be speaking at a Texas Values event in the Woodlands, northwest part of Houston. We still have tickets available. As a matter of fact, it's a free event, okay? General admission tickets are free. We only have a limited amount of them, okay? But if you want to get your picture with Riley and also other kinds of good stuff, there are some other fees that you could pay for that entrance. But I'm looking forward to seeing her. I mean, this young lady is exceptional. You've been out there on, just out and about so much. To be able to keep up that pace and that schedule can be very demanding. And so I love how, you've got this this group, if you will, of young ladies that are energetic and they understand the value of going to events and engaging people in public. So December 8th, go to our website, txvalues.org. If you want to come to that awesome event at Grace Church by Pastor Steve Riggle near the Woodlands. Morgan, you talked about this when we were opening. We're talking with Morgonn McMichael. She is Turning Point USA contributor, and y'all had a bunch of events. Give me a couple of examples of things you're hearing from young people, particularly young women, if you want to, about maybe that we're voting for the first time, or the presence of y'all on campus. Some of those things having an impact in them learning a little bit more and having a better understanding of what they're voting for when they go to the ballot.
Yeah, this last semester we hit dozens of campuses, especially in swing states, going to Penn State, University of Pittsburgh, hit some Georgia universities, Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison. And the attention that was received on these college campuses was energy like I've never seen before. For the first time, college campuses are not like they used to. You will see kids walking around with MAGA hats, proudly talking about conservative values and not fearing cancel culture anymore. And that just shows how much the needle has moved from 2016 to 2020 to now 2024. And it's looking very hopeful for 2028 because these students that used to fear cancel culture, the group that grew up on online, just being consumed by social media, is now actually wanting to unplug more, talk about real issues that are affecting them and going to affect their futures. I mean, when I asked Gen Zers, what is the biggest issue that they're concerned about when it comes to voting? A lot of the times I was hearing inflation because these students are directly seeing how inflation is impacting their wallets every single day. So the women and the men, they're more concerned about their future. And of course, there is still a large group of women who have been sold by the feminist movement, bought into the lies, who are continued to vote Democratic. And I think it's really the men that we need to empower and uplift to continue to speak the truth. And then the women will soon follow.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's refreshing too because a lot of times the college vote or that scene, I don't want to say it gets overlooked, but, percentage-wise, they don't always turn out in strong numbers, even though there's a lot of focus on them sometimes during election cycles and, on social media and all that. And, they want to be heard and let's not forget about them. But I think those numbers were much stronger this time. I think that, whatever the reasons are, I think young people are thinking more about what they care about. They're realizing the connection when you go to the ballot box and vote. And, look, I mean, the college campuses are a little bit more, serious, if you will, these days, where you're having these discussions. And I think a lot of people are realizing if they're not involved in the conversation, they're going to be left out, and maybe the other side is getting a little bit more of the attention. But some of it is a lot of the issues we're dealing now with just common sense, and people can't believe we're arguing over them. And then you've got, Charlie Kirk and y'all's crew and others that are out there helping people realize the simplicity of these issues and give them a little bit more courage to talk about. When Charlie Kirk shows up at your campus, when you show up, Riley Gaines, all these people, that they can sort of rally behind, that gives a good, really allows for there to be more interest on these things and for a reason. So we're excited about that. Okay, America Fest, December 19th through 22nd. We'll put a link for it. We are so disappointed that you're not going to spend some time in Thanksgiving in Texas because we know you have some connections here, but we will find a reason to get you back here and get you to one of our events sometime soon.
I would love that. I'd love to get back. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing. And just one last thing I want to say is that for everyone listening, it's really keeping up the momentum over the next 4 years. We won this election, but that does not mean that we stopped now. We have to continue to educate others, actually encourage our leaders, our congressmen and women to pass the legislation that we want to push our country in a more conservative direction and upholding the values that we want to see represented.
No doubt. Okay, Morgonn McMichael has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. Thanks, Morgonn, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Okay, I just got about 2 minutes left, and gosh, I really enjoy talking to Morgonn because, it can be hard to know what different people think in different segments of the electorate, if you will. And I'm not saying, Morgonn speaks for everyone and, in that generation and that age group, but I think when it comes to a lot of the issues we work on, she's pretty solid and dead on, right? I mean, she's got an awareness because she's out there on the campuses. She's talking with a lot of young people. She's not just taking some, survey on social media or online. She's having that in-person engagement. And I will tell you, a lot of times people will tell you some stuff in person that they may not say on social media, right? So that's why we talk a lot about this phrase, government belongs to those who show up, right? So getting out there, engaging with people can make a huge difference. Okay, not only are we having that event with Riley Gaines on December 8th, which I know is a Sunday evening, and so forgive us for that, but that is when Riley's available. She's going to be in Dallas the next day, so we're appreciative that she's available, So we'd love to have you there, and some fun opportunities too to do a sponsorship. Listen, this is a fundraising event as well, also just about celebrating Christmas and getting together with some of our friends. Come say thank you to Riley. wow, the amount of work that young lady has been involved in this year is quite extraordinary. And so, and look, bring your young daughter. So many young ladies want to meet her. Please try to bring those members of your family to this event. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to bring my daughter. She still has not met Riley. And we've had Riley at so many events, but my daughter's had some of her own commitments, and it just hasn't worked out. But we have another event that same weekend in Fort Worth, lunch on December 7th. That's at the Mexican Inn in Bedford with all your good Tarrant County friends. Vince and Mona Puente, John and Cheryl Bean, a whole host of other people are going to be there. And it's very reasonable to get to that event as well. We're just trying to get people together for Christmas, say thank you, talk about what we're going to do in the legislative session, and give you a good reason and a reminder about donating to us before the end of the year so we can continue to do the great work we do. And we've got people lining up, wanting to come work for us. I got to have a little bit more support in order to have those funds and to launch Texas Values University and a lot of good stuff. Listen, Thanksgiving's coming up. Watch for my special message. I don't want to give it all away right now, but I do want to say thank you if you've listened to the show or watched it, shared it, whatever you've done. And let's get more people a part of this conversation as the year starts to round out. But thank you sincerely for caring about some of the work we do, for being a part of it, and making our podcast and weekly show one of the best out there. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope to talk to you and see you as a part of our audience next week, where we talk about the issues every week of faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.